So, are there parallel universes? Today we are getting into the Mandela Effect. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Diverse Goddess. It's Hannah. So yes, today we are getting into Are There Parallel Universes, and we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect. But before we get into today's video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and also turn on notifications so you'll never miss a video. And then we are going to get into the Mandela Effect. So let's get into it. What exactly is the Mandela Effect? Well, in short, it's basically when a large number of people remember a certain event or a situation as occurring when it actually didn't. But this name, Mandela Effect, was actually coined back in 2009 by a woman named Fiona Broome. She had actually stumbled upon something when she was at a conference, and she was talking to a bunch of other people about how she remembered the tragedy of the South African president Nelson Mandela and how he had died in a prison in South Africa in the 1980s. The thing is, though, is that Nelson Mandela did not die in a prison in the 1980s. He actually passed away in 2013. And so when Fiona was at this conference and talking to all these other people, they all actually had the same memories and remembered the same events as she did. And some even remember news coverage covering his death. And so this, of course, shocked her. How could so many people, or a large number of people, remember the exact same details regarding an event when it never happened? So she decided to then make a website to discuss this very phenomenon that she then called the Mandela Effect. So I'm going to actually go over some examples of some current day Mandela effects. So now the first one is Oscar Mayer, or Oscar Mayer. Now a lot of people remember as Oscar Mayer, M-E-Y-E-R. But however, the real spelling is Oscar, M-A-Y-E-R. And I actually don't know about this one and can't vouch one way or another because I never ate that much Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer. But let me know in the comments if you remember it one way or another. So this next one comes from a popular game that was in the 90s, and actually some people are still playing it today, like me. But it's the game Monopoly and the Monopoly guy. And this one I do remember being a certain way because, like I said, I played this growing up. And I remember the Monopoly guy having a little monocle and looking like this. However, apparently he does not have a monocle and he looks like this. And I do remember him as having a little monocle. And so that's how I remember. So the fact that he doesn't have one, it kind of feels like something is missing. But let's continue. The next example is from Fruit of a Loom. Now, a lot of people know about Fruit of a Loom, and they know that the logo has fruit. However, how do you remember the logo with the fruit? Do you remember it like this? Or do you remember it like this? And so I remember it with a cornucopia behind it, because without it, it looks a little empty. But apparently Fruit of a Loom never had a cornucopia. It looked just like this. So this is actually the real logo, or the one that is correct. But again, you know, maybe I thought there should be a cornucopia behind it. I don't know, maybe there is some explanation for it, but I can kind of remember it having one. But let me know if you remember it one way or another as well. So this next example comes from a popular TV show back in the day. And I don't remember too much about the TV show because I never watched it actually, but I do remember the name of the show, and I remember it being Sex in the City. However, it is actually Sex in the City. And some people even actually remember getting products that said Sex in the City, like this guy.
Alright, you want proof of the Mandela Effect? Sex in the City. No question, what it used to be, hard fucking evidence. And most of you are going to say, oh, he's a graphic designer, he made the fucking box, plus the in, you know, it's a different color. But thank God my girl still has every fucking thing in here that says it again, and again. Yeah, stamped into the fucking plastic, carved into the glass, you fucking name it. I didn't go out here and make a fucking Sex in the City soaps and all this shit.
But again, it is not sex in the city, it's sex and the city. So this next example comes from a children's story called Curious George. He is a curious monkey who gets into a lot of mischief or trouble because he is so curious. However, the mystery around little Curious George is that a lot of people remember him having something that he does not. Take a look. Does something look like it's missing? His tail. Apparently, Curious George never had a tail. How does he not have a tail? I mean, he's a monkey after all, so he should have a tail. But apparently, he never had one, and a lot of people remember him having a tail. Now, this last example is the one that kind of creeps me out the most. And it doesn't really creep me out, actually. It makes sense to me, but we'll get into that in a second. But it's the one that makes the most sense to me and the one that kind of has the most proof to me because I remember it so distinctly because I grew up with this book series called The Berenstain Bears. I can remember I would used to daydream in these books because I actually wanted to be one of the Berenstain Bears. Like, I either wanted to be sister number 2 or like a, nearby cousin who was a part of the family and just was like chilling with the bears because that's how much I loved the Berenstain Bears. And I also liked the illustrations. But anyway, the title of the book is The Berenstain Bears, and that's how everybody remembers it and how people pronounce it. However, it is called the Berenstain Bears with an A. What? And I can even remember watching the cartoon versions of the Berenstain Bears, and they even sing in the opening credits or whatever you want to call it of the show. They sing Berenstain Bears. They don't say Berenstain.
This way to Bear Country. You'll know when you're there. As soon as you enter, you'll feel like a bear. A great grizzly bear. A Berenstain Bear. We are the Berenstain Bears. Mama.
Now, some could say maybe it's pronounced Berenstain, but it's spelt Berenstain. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense because they're very different vowels and very different sounds. And so if it's spelt stain, I think we would all remember it as stain and not steen. I don't know, but I remember it as steen. There are, of course, other examples that people have stumbled upon, but I think that gives you guys a good idea of what the Mandela Effect is like. And that kind of brings up the question, are we living in some sort of simulation, and why do people remember certain logos or children's book or TV shows a certain way when they never were? And that brings up a question, are there parallel universes? Some people feel that is the explanation as to why people remember certain things when they turned out to not be that way, because if we do live in a sort of simulation or a parallel universe, the reason why people remember it a certain way, like the Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears, because in one universe it is Steen, and in the other universe it is Stain. And so it somehow, when the simulation, there's like a glitch, I guess you could say, or they overlap somehow, that's where we kind of stumble into the other universe, or the other universe spills into ours. And I actually tend to believe or lean more towards that, yes, we do live in a sort of simulation, or there are parallel universes, because I do believe there is way more to life than meets the eye. And I actually believe that we live in a holographic frequency, basically, and everything is a form of coding that our brain decodes a certain way, and that our brains are basically a projector that sees the reality that we're supposed to see depending on our program and all that stuff. But basically it's just a bunch of frequencies, and there are many parallel universes or dimensions, and yeah, I believe all of the above, actually. Now, I've had a few experiences in my life, but I'm only going to share one right now that could kind of show that perhaps there are parallel universe. And I call them experiences even though they were technically dreams, but they didn't really feel like dreams because they actually felt like a real experience. Like, I felt very awake when this happened. So I call it an experience because of that. So this dream or experience, as I like to call it, happened within the last year or so, because some of my other experiences happened more like mid 2000s or whatnot, but this one was the most recent one. And in this experience, I was in a parallel universe, you could say. And it started off where I was in my bedroom and I was looking at my mirror, or through my mirror, and through this mirror there was this other realm, so to speak. And so when I was looking at the mirror, obviously I saw my reflection and I saw me, and the person in the reflection did look like me, because obviously that's what you see when you look into a mirror. However, when I looked closer, I noticed that this girl that looked like me was wearing different clothes, and so that kind of startled me a little bit, and I was like, huh? And so when I looked further, I saw that I could actually go through the mirror. So I went through the mirror, so because the mirror was almost like a doorway, so to speak, so I went through it, and then I ended up in this other girl that looked like me, her bedroom, and I ended up in her closet, or coming out of her closet. Now, of course, this girl that looked like me, at first she didn't really notice that we looked alike, and she didn't really get it, but then when she looked a little closer and she saw that I did indeed look like her, she's the one who freaked out, not me. And it didn't freak me out so much, because to me it was more sort of normal, because my actual personality is I am very open-minded and I kind of believe everything is possible, and so nothing really shocks me when they happen, because I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But to her, she was kind of the opposite of me in personality. But the thing is, even though she was sort of opposite in personality to me, we also had some things in common. For example, like in real life, I am adopted, and so wasn't this girl who looked like me. She was adopted. However, she was adopted by a family in New York and actually grew up in New York. And I was adopted, but I grew up in Maine. And the irony is that I'm actually, and I do live in New York now, but I didn't grow up here. And the other thing that was a little bit, I guess you could say, kind of opposite, or we had different personalities, was like, for example, when I was in college, I never joined a sorority. Even though our college wasn't really big on sororities, they did have one. But it's just not like my personality or my cup of tea, and I would feel very out of place in a sorority of sorts. But she, on the other hand, she grew up in New York, she grew up on the Upper East Side, and she was a sorority girl. So like I said, we had a few things in common, but a lot of our personality was very different. Like, she wasn't as spiritual as I am, and I don't even like to label myself as spiritual. I just consider myself very open-minded, and I probably think very alternatively to a lot of people, and I probably do look at the world in a very different way than most people think, and sometimes I struggle with how much I want to share with you guys, because I don't want to like freak you guys out either. But if that's something you guys are interested, also let me know, because I have a lot more things that I could share, and experiences and things that I believe in, and all those things. So I want to get into all of it on this channel, but you know, YouTube likes to make people have like one type of content, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to call my YouTube channel Diverse Goddess, because I want to talk about anything and everything that I want to talk about, especially when it comes to life. And you know, obviously we also want to become better people in the process, but I also really am itching just to talk about all the things that I want to talk about that might be a little on the strange side. But anyway, back to the dream or the experience. So she wasn't as spiritual as I am, and so she was more one-dimensional, and she kind of believed in life as being, you know, what you see is what you get. And I guess you could say she was a little bit more shallow in that sense. Like, she didn't have a very open mind or depth of perception about life. So that was something that was a little bit opposite from us. But even though she, you know, wasn't as spiritual, and she kind of believed in like one-dimensional things, and what you see is what you get, and all there is, and blah blah blah, she did kind of acknowledge the experience we were having, and the fact that, you know, I was proof of a parallel universe. And again, it freaked her out, and she just kept saying to herself, oh my god, like, this is true, like, oh my god, this is true. And I remember she kept repeating those words, like, and she kept saying it to herself, oh my god, this is true, but it can't be true, oh my god, no, it can't be true. And I kept just saying to her, like, yeah, it's true. Basically, I represented like proof that she never actually wanted to like acknowledge or see. And as for me, again, you know, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's true, but I gotta go back now. Basically, I was telling her, like, I gotta go, you know, back to my own bedroom now. So I basically entered the same way that I came. So it was through her closet, which then sort of became the mirror, and I came out of the mirror, and then I was back in my own bedroom. Now, the mirror was interesting for me because when you look in a mirror, you are kind of seeing something that's opposite from you. So, you know, like your left hand becomes your right hand and all that stuff. So it's basically a mirror image. It's an opposite image. And I found it interesting that in this parallel universe, my other me was an kind of an opposite personality to myself, which I just thought was interesting. So anyway, that was just a short example of what could be considered a parallel universe, or was. And so things like the Mandela Effect might actually be extremely real and probably is real. And so things like the Mandela Effect, like I said, happens when both parallel universes kind of collide, or as I like to say it, the holographic frequencies kind of overlap each other, and like the energetic cords, if you will, kind of have like a rewiring or a mismatch of sorts. And so again, we get a little bit of their universe, or they get a little bit of ours, and you know, we kind of remember things with a little bit of a tweak in them. And like I said, I have other examples that I could share of my own experiences, and I might start sharing them in future videos. Get over my fear of how maybe people are going to perceive my content if something. I don't consider it weird. I just think there's way more to this universe. And again, my experiences that I've had in my life, and some of them have been very paranormal, and you know, it's been happening kind of my whole life. Of course, I'm gonna also keep posting, you know, self-help type of videos and stuff like that. But anyway, there's going to be more videos to come in. But anyway, what do you guys think about the Mandela Effect? And do you have any examples or experiences of your own, perhaps? And what are some of your beliefs and theories around the Mandela Effect? And are there parallel universes? So on that note, I'm actually going to end today's video. And if you have any questions or comments, like I said, leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss a video, just in case, you know, I miss a week or something like that. But that way you'll always be notified when I post a video. Also, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Hannah Rokes. And I will see you guys next week in the next video. Bye!